Hello everyone, my name is Cassidy. I am the registered dietitian with HealthLinc underneath the Food as Medicine program like I've been introduced. Today I am grateful to be here to cook for you guys. I am actually making a breakfast style dish. I know everyone just got off of lunch, so it's not a lunch dish, not going on repeat here. Going to try something with breakfast. The reason I chose breakfast was because at the holiday time, sometimes breakfast gets overlooked. We're so busy, we kind of skip it. You know, we may not make the best choices. So I wanted to prepare a dish that is one, easy, two, affordable, and gives us a good start to our day instead of choosing those convenient items on the go just because we're so busy. So this dish has very minimal ingredients. The star of the dish is vegetables, so it's an egg and veggie breakfast hash. Today I will be using these Green Giant vegetables. They're actually seasoned with Mrs. Dash, so there's no salt included. Whenever you're shopping in the grocery store, frozen items are typically packed with salt, but for this demonstration, I wanted to do a no salt included recipe, very low carbohydrate as well. The most carbs come from the potatoes that are inside this bag. So this bag has broccoli, cauliflower, potatoes, and carrots, which are all vegetables, right? But those potatoes are the starchy ones. And that's the only thing that's really gonna raise our blood sugar is the potatoes in this dish. Okay, so the other ingredients, I have some fresh spinach for you guys, some large size eggs, and then the seasonings is gonna be olive oil to coat the pan, onion powder, garlic powder, and black pepper. That's all that it takes, really. Of course, I mentioned there's Mrs. Dash already on the vegetables, so that helps out the flavor as well. And then just to kind of give it that a little bit creamier taste is gonna be some Colby Jack cheese on top. Okay, so whenever we're preparing food, we always wanna wash our hands, right? Warm soapy water, 20 seconds, especially flu season's coming around. This dish, I'm not touching anything. So, you know, it's up to you if you don't want to wash your hands before, if you're not touching any of the ingredients, but as far as preparing actual vegetables, always wash your hands for 20 seconds underneath warm water. Okay, so I have a skillet here and a hot plate. So this would be for imitation of your guys' stovetop. You're gonna wanna turn on the pan, medium heat, and let that kind of get hot. This takes a little while to warm up, so it's been kind of getting ready for you guys for this demonstration. You're gonna grab a medium-sized skillet. Any skillet will do, honestly, just make sure it's big enough to hold all of your ingredients. Once that starts to feel a little warm, we're gonna place our olive oil in there. I chose olive oil for heart health. So it is a great option to season our foods with, as well as coating the bottom of a pan. Now say if you're at a grocery store and you think olive oil is just too expensive, canola oil is just as good. So the tier of heart healthy oils go olive oil and then canola oil. We wanna stay away from that vegetable oil overall. Okay, so a 2 tablespoon is a good circle pour inside of the pan. So even though I'm not using a measuring spoon, I know by going 1, 2, that was 2 tablespoons. And that's important too because oil has a lot of fat in it. You know, we don't want to consume too much fat because that's also tearing up our hearts. Okay, so we're gonna kind of swirl this around, coat the bottom, and then we're just gonna let it heat up slightly. We don't wanna overcook the oil because that'll kind of give an altered taste to the vegetables. If you've ever overcooked garlic, that's a good example too. You can notice when that oil or the garlic's overcooked. All right, so that just takes a minute. And I already microwaved these too. Since the microwave was in a separate room, I didn't wanna have to step out for you guys. So microwave this, you didn't have to open it. It was just microwave on for 4 minutes or until they're, you know, kind of basically thawed out. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add those. You can hear them sizzle, so that means our oil was at perfect temperature. I'm gonna set that up so you guys can see it. All right. Okay, so now the next step in this dish is to kind of let those, you know, vegetables cook for just a little bit longer. Like I said, they're thawed, but they're not cooked, right? We want them hot. We want maybe the potatoes to get a little bit of crisp on them. And then after they are starting to cook for a few minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and smush them down. And you guys will see why later after they're cooking and smushing. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bump up the heat since we are taking off. Now this dish is one of those that I've prepared it a few times before this day, and I wanted to test it. Is it a breakfast I can start and walk away from? Most definitely. Is it a dish that I can have for leftovers? Most definitely. You know, I'm preparing basically a double portion just so everybody can sample it today, but the recipes that are included in your guys' goodie bags is for a 1 to 2 person serving. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stir that up, make sure all the veggies are getting coated in oil. All right. All right, this is gonna take a couple minutes, guys, just because of working with the hot plate. It is different than with a stovetop with a flame or an induction burner. So while we're doing that, I wanna talk a little bit about the breakfast situation. You know, how we skip breakfast, or maybe it's something that we get on the go. It's really important for us to break our overnight fast. So when we're sleeping, we're not eating, obviously, right? We're too busy sleeping. So when we wake up, it's important to feed our bodies with nutrition in order to stabilize our blood sugar. That way it doesn't drop by the afternoon, or we don't overeat at lunchtime. You know, sometimes we have the perception that if we skip a meal, we can make up for it later. And it really doesn't work that way. You know, we're going from a state of almost deprivation or starving when we're fasting, right? And then when we dump a bunch of food on it, our body kind of freaks out and goes a little bit of haywire. So it's always so important to have breakfast. And while I'm doing this, you know, veggie skillet for you guys, you could always just choose something simple too, like oatmeal and toast if you're not a big breakfast eater. This primarily is for the holiday season. That way we can, you know, have a good breakfast to start our day with. All right, these are getting cooked pretty good. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna smush them. All right, and sometimes too with frozen products, you never know what you're gonna get, right? So here's a kind of not so pretty potato. We're gonna get rid of that. Okay, so this is gonna sit here for a couple minutes, and I wanna continue giving you guys some nutrition education. So originally I wanted to do sweet potatoes, but with the holiday season approaching, they're out. Like we checked 3 or 4 stores, they were out of the frozen sweet potatoes. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do that's still, you know, equally as nutritious and kind of like along the same style. So even though I wanted to do sweet potatoes, these are red skin potatoes. And it's important to choose things with color. So you might be thinking, Cassidy, but potatoes are white and cauliflower is white. What do you mean choose it with color? There's no color there. And to be honest with you, white is a color. So whenever we're choosing fruits and vegetables, the white ones typically have more nutrition than the colorful ones. So cauliflower is actually a cancer-fighting vegetable as well as a depression-fighting vegetable. With seasonal affective disorder coming upon us without the sunlight, we typically feel a little bit more sad. So feeding our body with lots of fruits and vegetables will help kind of cure those symptoms of feeling so down. All right, I hear it doing its thing, so that makes me happy. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the next step because I think that it'll be just fine. So you can choose any kind of spinach that you'd like. There's always, you know, different containers, bags, plastic tubs. It doesn't really matter as long as you get spinach for this dish. Spinach is really high in calcium and iron, so those are 2 really important ingredients as nutritional contents as well to help fight those kind of seasonal blues going on. So, okay, so who has cooked spinach in this room? I wanna know. Okay, so cooking spinach starts out as a big old bag and it just completely will go down. I contemplated if I wanted to use both bags because I know how much it goes down, and I'm like, we'll see how it looks. Okay. Again, not using my hands takes technique. All right, so now we are going to let that do its thing. I'm gonna go ahead and season it though, because it's better to have a little bit of flavor on our spinach than nothing. It'll taste a little bit too raw. So I'm missing the little slotted part on my seasonings, but just a nice sprinkle. Again, onion and garlic powder, it's not gonna raise our blood pressure. It doesn't count towards our blood sugar. It's really a great alternative to use for seasoning our foods. And those that, you know, kind of like really salty foods, just add more onion and garlic powder. I'm a big advocate on those 2 ingredients. I add them to literally everything. All right, I'm just gonna add a little bit of black pepper. We'll add more once the eggs are on because that's what we really care about, getting pepper. Okay, we're gonna put a lid on now. And the spinach is gonna start to wilt from the steam from the pan. Again, no hands included. All right. So while that's starting to steam, you know, I'll let you guys peep it because I can hold the lid closed. Does anybody have any questions so far? Anything that I've mentioned as far as nutritional education or about the ingredients, where you could find these bags of vegetables, anything at all? If you guys have questions, now would be the time to go ahead and ask them. Yes?
I was surprised about the Mrs. Dash and the green giant vegetables. Are there any other vegetables that do that too?
Absolutely. Well, Green Giant is the one that primarily has started this salt-free option. That's a good point to bring up too, because in the frozen aisle, there are a lot of varieties of frozen vegetables. And they'll say in a cream sauce or a cheese sauce or a garlic sauce, right? Anything with that word sauce equals salt. And that's the ones we want to stay away from. Anything that says, you know, in a sauce or cheese or any kind of that style, and looking for either the unseasoned ones or seeing the ones that have, you know, Mrs. Dash right there. And it'll have, you know, the big giant label, salt-free seasoning, show an example of it, which I don't have a little tub of it right now, but this is included, so I didn't have to use Mrs. Dash. Yeah. Do you season with Mrs. Dash at home? Good, yeah. So that doesn't raise our blood pressure level. Before there was one option, you know, just Mrs. Dash, normal seasoning, and now they came out with different variety like this. Yep, lemon pepper. This one's garlic and herb. I have a table blend one too. So she's kind of started to incorporate different seasonings in her line of salt-free seasoning. Go ahead.
I'm your favorite question. What about Slap Your Mama? I use that a lot.
So that definitely has salt in it. So if you have high blood pressure, I would suggest you getting used to seasoning your foods without Slap Your Mama seasoning. Go ahead.
Can frozen spinach be put in there?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Canned spinach too, that is again high in salt since there's no way for us to rinse off the canned spinach. But fresh or frozen spinach doesn't have any salt in it. That would be a great option too, and definitely affordable. Any questions? Okay, I'm about to stir this a little bit. We don't want things to burn without us realizing, right? You know, we want to be mindful on how the dish is going. All right, we're just gonna work the spinach in. If you guys have ever seen Schitt's Creek, they have this segment about folding in the cheese. We're kind of folding in the spinach. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it's a whole thing. Fold it in. All right, so now that we've stirred it up, we're allowing that heat to get brought to the top of the pan so the spinach can continue to wilt. All right, and like I said, I made this a couple times, and one time I kind of neglected my trial and error, and I walked away, and it still was successful. You know, you just got to be mindful in how many minutes you walk away from it. Like I was just talking to you guys, you know, for maybe like 4 minutes, and it's doing just fine. Okay. So overall, the spinach is getting pretty wilted. I'm gonna go ahead and let it do its thing for another couple minutes. Now would be a good time for me to kind of talk about how to build a healthy plate. So half of the plate should be fresh fruit or non-starchy vegetables. So our non-starchy are everything except potatoes, peas, and corn. That can fit in the top corner of our plate, the potatoes, peas, and corn, because the top corner is supposed to be your starchy veggie or starch, such as bread, pasta, rice. But we want half of the plate to be the non-starchy vegetables or fruit, or you can even do a little mixture of both depending on what you're eating. The other corner that's missing something is our protein. So this could be where our chicken goes. In this case, it's gonna be eggs. It could also be where yogurt goes, cheese. And so when we're building our plates or our meals, we wanna be mindful that we're choosing those things, right? Every dish has a non-starchy veggie. Every dish has a good protein source. That way we're not missing any of the nutritional content that we need in our diets. So for some people, it may be scary to see all these veggies, and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, I've never ate that many vegetables in my life. You know, and it's just a work in progress. So That's why I wanted to add the cheese too, you know, like adding something to make us still happy with having the vegetables is important. You know, we're not having any added salt in this dish besides literally the salt that comes in cheese. All right, guys, I feel comfortable with doing the next step right now, just because there is a lot of vegetables in this skillet. So the next step is to create little kind of holes in the skillet. All right, and this is where it's gonna be like our little divots for our eggs are gonna sit and start to cook. Okay, so we're gonna take our eggs, and we're gonna go ahead and crack one into each well. I'm not fancy enough to crack with one hand yet. I've been practicing, guys. It'll happen eventually. As long as we don't get any shell in, we're fine. Okay. I added 6 eggs for this recipe. The recipe that you guys are taking home, it only shows 4. And the reason for that is I kind of like it to be divided into fourths for this dish when you're making it at home. That way each portion has an egg right in the middle, and then the vegetables kind of surround it. Okay, so the next step, again, we're gonna season our eggs a little bit, which I don't have that top. So we're just gonna do a light season. Some may be thinking, you know, it's a lot of onion and garlic powder, but without that salt, we need it to taste like something, right? All right, now we're gonna get that pepper on there. Okay. Last, yeah.
Paprika too?
Yes, you can use any kind of seasoning as long as there's no salt. Paprika, crushed red pepper, which I kind of thought about using other ones, but I was like, no, we'll just keep it simple. But yeah, you guys can definitely use any kind of seasonings you like without salt. So I like sometimes spicy foods. I'll add cayenne pepper, paprika. What I'm doing right now is actually breaking that membrane of the eggs. That way they can cook fully. I do want to mention too, with eggs, the portion of the egg that has the most fat is the yolk. So when we're watching out for our heart health, we really want to be mindful on how many eggs we're eating. So with the recipe that's going home with you guys, you know, it's a 1 egg serving. You can have 2, you know, 2 is the max of an egg allowance a day. But coming up with the holidays too, I always like to educate on eggs because you know, deviled eggs are very prevalent and it's very easy to eat a lot of them. Won't even give a number. So just being mindful on eggs for heart health, you know, you're eating a lot of fat just in that little bitty egg yolk. Plus we mix it with mayonnaise, you know, whoever prepares it might add salt to it. So just be mindful on the amount of eggs that we eat for sure. They're a great protein source. They have a lot of B vitamins. That are great for our health, but it is very easy to overeat. A good alternative is to just use the egg white. So even though for this dish I'm adding, you know, the whole egg, to cut that fat down even more, you could have just used egg whites. Good. We're just letting it do its thing now. So again, the steam is coming from the bottom, circling to the top, creating condensation, kind of helping cooking those eggs. If your pan starts to kind of struggle and you notice the eggs aren't really doing anything, you can kind of, you know, scramble them a little bit more with your spatula. Like right now I just stabbed them. So we're hoping, you know, that the steam kind of cooks it from the top. If it doesn't happen though, you can definitely just scramble it in there. I'm gonna check on my eggs and my ingredients underneath. So the egg whites are starting to cook. I just wanna make for sure that nothing's burning underneath, so I'm gonna give it a good ring around the rosy here. Sometimes it's, you know, not really the ingredients, it's the technique of the dish, right? You know, what we're working with, the time. And remember guys, I said I walked away from this dish, right? So right now I'm standing in front of you, trying to like babysit it and stuff, but really it was a place and go get something else done. Absolutely. Let's talk about cheese really quick. So I chose Colby Jack. A lot of people like cheddar, but the more yellow the cheese, the more fat there is. So again, trying to watch out for your guys' heart health, I chose a mixture. If I were to even want less fat, I could have chose white cheese only, mozzarella, Swiss, provolone, Parmesan does have more salt, so that's not always recommended unless, you know, you're having like say spaghetti or something. When you're not adding salt to the spaghetti, you're adding that cheese to make up for the salt. Same for this. This one doesn't, this meal has no fat besides the oil and the cheese and the egg. So I thought it was appropriate to still use a mixed cheese. Again, you can choose any cheese you'd like. Just the more yellow is the more fat. All right, so I can notice that my veggies are starting to cook on the bottom a little, so I'm just gonna go ahead and try to work these eggs, that way they are cooked and we don't start overcooking anything else. It's looking really good though. All right, I think now is appropriate to add the cheese. So on the recipe card I provided for the 2 servings per dish is a ½ cup. This package is 8 servings total. So that way you guys know whenever you're looking at high fat content foods such as cheese, you can always look at the back, because this, you know, there's different versions, brands, sizes of packages. So you may think, okay, like I can use half this bag really, right? But no, it's a quarter of the bag. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle some cheese on. We're doing a ½ cup, which I'm sorry, I'm not measuring, but I know what a ½ cup looks like. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna place that lid back on, let it finish, because it is about done. Again, great opportunity to walk away, take care of kids, take care of business if you need to. All right, so this cheese is melty and gooey, and this is what it should look like, everyone. So I'm gonna go ahead and divvy it up and start letting you guys sample it. In the recipe that is in your bags, it tells you to divide it into fourths, because remember I had those eggs perfectly in the corners. That way it was almost not like a pie, you know, but kind of like a section little scoop of everything.